The Dominion of had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 1,000 worlds, and every species they conquered learned the same lesson: obey or die. They were tall, thin creatures with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed like dying stars. They believed they were the chosen rulers of the galaxy. They believed all other species existed only to serve them. At the heart of their empire stood the Arena of Ascension. It was a massive station floating in space, large enough to hold 1,000,000 spectators. Warriors from conquered worlds came here to fight and die for the entertainment of the courts. The rules were simple. Each conquered species had to send their best fighters as tribute. If a tribute won their match, they received 1 year of reduced taxes. If they lost, they died, and their death was broadcast to every corner of the empire. The arena had existed for 8,000 years. In all that time, they had never been surprised. They had seen every kind of warrior. They had watched the strongest fall and the clever ones last a little longer before falling too. The arena always won in the end. The always won in the end. Then humanity arrived. The colony ship Perseverance had been traveling through deep space for 3 generations. The people on board had left Earth looking for a new home. They did not know that they were flying into territory. They did not know that such a thing as the even existed. The patrol ships found them on a cold morning in the recycled air of the Perseverance. The humans had no weapons that could fight back. They had no warriors trained for battle. They were farmers, engineers, teachers, and children. The soldiers walked through the ship like giants among insects. They laughed at how small and soft the humans were. They laughed at their weak bones and their thin skin and their short lives. By Dominion law, every new species had to send a tribute to the arena. The commander looked at the humans and smiled a cold smile. These creatures were not worth conquering. They were barely worth noticing, but they would make excellent entertainment. The commander walked through the ship, looking for the perfect tribute. He did not want a strong one. He did not want a brave one. He wanted someone small and weak, someone who would die quickly and make the crowd laugh. He wanted to show the galaxy that humans were nothing. He found her in a maintenance corridor on Deck 7. Myra was 17 years old. She had brown skin, dark eyes, and short black hair that she kept tied back while she worked. She was helping her father fix a broken water recycler when the soldiers appeared. She was holding a wrench. She was wearing dirty work clothes. She was nobody important. The commander pointed at her. "This one," he said. Myra's father tried to fight. He was a small man, a maintenance engineer who had never hurt anyone in his life. The soldiers broke his arm without even trying. They pushed him to the ground and held him there while he screamed his daughter's name. Myra did not scream. She did not cry. She looked at the commander with her dark eyes, and something in that look made him feel strange for just a moment. Then the moment passed and he laughed again. "Take her," he said. They dragged Myra through the ship. People watched from doorways and corridors. Some of them cried. Some of them looked away. A few tried to help and the soldiers knocked them down. Myra saw all of it. She remembered all of it. On the transport ship to the arena station, she sat in a small cell with a single window. She could see the Perseverance getting smaller and smaller behind her. She could see her whole world disappearing into the black. She did not cry, she thought. The arena station was larger than anything Myra had ever seen. It was a city floating in space, built from metal and light and the bones of dead warriors. Ships came and went constantly, carrying spectators and tributes and supplies. They had made death into a business, and business was very good. They processed Myra like cargo. They scanned her body and recorded her species and assigned her a number. They gave her simple clothes to wear, a gray tunic and gray pants, the uniform of the condemned. They took her wrench. They took her boots. They took everything except her name, and they did not bother to learn that. The holding cells were deep in the station, far from the light of the artificial sun that hung over the arena floor. The cells held warriors from dozens of species. Myra saw creatures she could never have imagined. Huge beings covered in natural armor, with 4 arms and tusks like curved swords. Tall and graceful, with too many joints in their limbs and blades built into their bodies. Floating shapes of shadow and light who could reach into your mind and make you see things that were not there. These were the champions of their worlds, the strongest, the fastest, the deadliest. They had been sent to the arena because they had some chance of winning. They looked at Myra and saw something that should not be there. A child, a small, soft, breakable child. Was the oldest in the cells. He had fought in the arena 3 times and survived, which was more than most could say. His armor was, and one of his tusks was broken, but his eyes were still sharp. He watched the human girl walk to her cell, and he shook his great head. "The small ones never last past the first gong," he said to the in the cell beside him. "It is a mercy. Quick deaths are better than slow ones." They made a sound that might have been agreement. Myra heard them. She said nothing. She walked into her cell and sat down on the cold floor. She looked around at the walls, at the door, at the small vent in the ceiling. She looked at everything. In the cell across from her, a young was crying. He was barely adult by his species standards, and he was terrified. He knew he was going to die. Everyone knew they were going to die. Myra watched him for a long time. Then she closed her eyes and began to think about water recyclers, about maintenance tunnels, about the way large systems always had small weaknesses that nobody important ever bothered to notice. She had 7 days before her match. 7 days to learn everything she could about this place. 7 days to find a way to survive. They had chosen her because she was small and weak and would die quickly. They had made a mistake. On her first night in the holding cells, Myra did not sleep. She watched, she listened, she learned. The guards changed every 6 hours. They were bored and lazy because nothing ever happened in the holding cells. The prisoners were too weak or too smart to cause trouble. The guards talked to each other about games and food and which matches they wanted to see. They never looked at Myra. She was too small to notice. Good, she thought, small is good. Small can go places that big cannot. On the second day, she found the vent. It was in the corner of her cell near the floor, a small metal grate that led to the maintenance tunnels. These tunnels ran through the entire station, carrying air and water and waste to where they needed to go. On the Perseverance, Myra had spent her whole life in tunnels like these. She knew how they worked. She knew how to move through them without being seen. The grate was held in place by 4 screws. Myra did not have a tool, but she had fingernails and patience. On the 3rd night, when the guards were playing cards and not watching, she removed the grate and crawled into the darkness. The tunnels were tight and dirty. The air smelled like metal and old water. Myra moved slowly, carefully, remembering every turn she took. The station was huge, but all stations were the same in some ways. Power went one direction. Waste went another. If you understood the flow, you could go anywhere. She found the arena on her 4th night. It was the most terrifying place she had ever seen. A vast circle of sand and stone, surrounded by rising seats that could hold 1,000,000 spectators. Above it hung an artificial sun that could burn as bright as a real star. Below the sand, she could see the machines, the hidden systems that made the arena deadly. Flame jets that could erupt without warning. Pillars that rose and fell from the ground. Sand that could turn to liquid and swallow a warrior whole. They did not believe in fair fights. They believed in entertainment. Myra studied the machines. She counted the flame jets. She timed the pillars. She mapped the patterns in her mind the same way she had mapped the water systems on the Perseverance. Everything had a pattern. Everything had a weakness. On her way back to her cell, she got lost. The tunnels twisted and turned, and she took a wrong path somewhere. She found herself in a section she did not recognize, surrounded by pipes that hissed with steam and machines that hummed with power. She was about to turn back when she heard a voice. "You are either very brave or very stupid." Myra froze. The voice came from the shadows ahead. Slowly, a figure moved into the dim light. She could tell by his too many joints and the blades that grew from his arms. But something was wrong with him. His left leg was twisted and bent at a bad angle. His blades were dull and chipped. His eyes, which should have glowed with life, were dim and tired. "I am Hen," he said. "I process the waste that comes from above. I clean the blood from the sand after the matches. I am nothing and no one, which is why I am still alive." He tilted his head. "What are you?" Myra could have lied. She could have said she was lost and afraid and did not know what she was doing. But something in the old's eyes made her tell the truth. "I am supposed to die in 3 days," she said. "I am trying to find a way to live." Hen stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are the human," he said. "The joke. The chose you because you would die fast and make the crowd laugh. I have seen 1,000 tributes come through these cells. I have never seen one crawling through the maintenance tunnels, studying the arena like it was a machine to be fixed." "Everything is a machine," Myra said. "Everything can be fixed or broken." The old was quiet for a long time. Myra could see the battle in his eyes. He had given up long ago. He had accepted that the always won. But something about this small human girl made him remember what it felt like to hope. "Come with me," he said finally. "I will show you things." In the days that followed, Hen became Myra's teacher. He could not teach her to fight. She was too small, too weak, too human for that. But he knew things that no tribute was supposed to know. He had been a warrior once, long ago. He had survived the arena through luck and skill, and then he had been broken and thrown away. They had forgotten about him. That was their mistake. He taught Myra how they moved. They were strong, but their armor made them slow. When they attacked, they leaned forward, and their grip on their weapons loosened for just a moment. A small moment, but moments were all Myra had. He taught her about they were fast, but they were proud. They believed in honor and beauty. They could be made angry, and anger made them stupid. He taught her about they could reach into your mind, but their power had a range. If you stayed far enough away, they could not touch you, and they were weak in body. Without their mental powers, they were nothing. Most importantly, he taught her about the arena itself. They designed it to be unfair, he said, but they are lazy. They use the same patterns, the same traps over and over again. If you know the patterns, you can use them against your enemy. Myra memorized everything. The timing of the flame jets, the triggers for the rising pillars, the safe paths through the killing sand. She built a map in her mind, a perfect picture of every danger and every opportunity. On the night before her match, she returned to her cell and sat in the darkness. She could hear the other tributes around her. Some were praying, some were crying. Some had gone silent, lost in their own fear. The old was watching her through the bars. "You have been gone every night," he said quietly. "I have noticed. Where do you go?" Myra looked at him. He was huge and terrifying, covered in scars from battles she could not imagine, but his eyes were kind. "I go to learn," she said. "Learn what? How to die?" "No," Myra said, "how to live." Studied her for a long time, then he nodded slowly. "I have seen many tributes," he said. "Hundreds, thousands. They all come here thinking they can survive. Most of them are wrong, but you are different." He paused. "I do not know what you are planning, little human, but I hope you succeed. I would like to see the surprised for once." Myra smiled. It was a small smile, quiet and hard. "They will be," she said. In the distance, she could hear the crowd gathering for tomorrow's matches. A million voices, hungry for blood. They did not know what was coming. They thought they would see a quick death, a small joke to warm up the crowd. They were wrong. The day of the match began with drums. Deep, heavy drums that shook the walls of the holding cells and made the air itself tremble. Myra had never heard anything like them. They sounded like the heartbeat of some great beast, slow and powerful and hungry. The guards came for her at midday. They did not bother to put chains on her. Why would they? She was small and weak and could not possibly escape. They walked her through the corridors like she was already dead, just a body that had not stopped moving yet. The arena waited above. Myra had seen it from the maintenance tunnels, but that was nothing compared to seeing it in person. It was vast. The sand stretched out in every direction, gold and orange under the artificial sun. The walls rose up around it like the inside of a great bowl, covered in seats that held more people than Myra had ever seen in her life. 1 million spectators, 1 million eyes, all watching, all waiting. The noise was overwhelming. The crowd was screaming, cheering, stamping their feet. They had come to see death, and they were excited. Myra stood at the entrance to the arena floor, a small gray figure against all that gold, and she felt very, very small. Then the drums stopped, and the announcer's voice rolled across the arena like thunder. WARRIORS and witnesses of the Dominion, today we bring you a special match. Our beloved champion, TORAX the Undying, will face a tribute from a new species. Behold the human. The crowd laughed. It was not a mean laugh, not exactly. It was the laugh of people who had seen a good joke. Myra was so small, so thin, so obviously breakable. She looked like a child who had wandered onto the wrong stage. The audience found it amusing. Myra walked out onto the sand. Her feet sank slightly with each step. The sand was designed that way, designed to slow down fighters, to make them tired. But Myra was light. She barely made a mark as she moved. She walked to the center of the arena and stopped, and she looked around at the screaming crowd, and she felt the fear inside her chest like a cold hand squeezing her heart. She did not let it show. The gates on the opposite side of the arena opened and walked out. He was the largest Myra had ever seen. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, and his armor was thick and dark from dozens of battles. His 4 arms were each as wide as Myra's entire body. In his upper right hand he carried a spear, a legendary weapon passed down through 12 generations of champions. The metal gleamed like silver and fire. The crowd went insane. TORAX, TORAX, TORAX. The champion walked to the center of the arena and looked down at Myra. His eyes were small and red, and they burned with contempt. He had fought 47 matches in this arena. He had killed warriors from every corner of the galaxy, and now they expected him to fight this tiny, soft, pathetic creature. He raised his spear and the crowd roared. He was putting on a show. He always put on a show. "Little thing," he said, his voice like rocks grinding together. "I will make this quick. It is the only mercy I can offer." Myra said nothing. She was looking at the sand beneath her feet, at the slight discoloration that marked the hidden flame jets. She was counting the seconds since the artificial sun had pulsed, timing the rhythm of the arena's deadly machinery. The gong sounded. Charged. He was fast, faster than something that big should be. He crossed the distance between them in 3 great strides, his spear aimed at Myra's chest. The crowd held its breath. This would be over in seconds. Myra moved. She did not try to block. She did not try to fight. She simply was not there when the spear arrived. She had seen the way his weight shifted, the way his shoulders telegraphed his attack. She had stepped to the left a heartbeat before he struck, and his spear cut through empty air. The crowd went quiet for just a moment. Then they laughed again. A lucky dodge, it would not save her. Turned and struck again, and again, and again. Each time Myra was somewhere else. She was not running, she was dancing. She moved across the sand like water, always just out of reach, always one step ahead. Hen had told her the truth. They were strong, but they were predictable. Their attacks followed patterns, and Myra had spent her whole life learning patterns. The crowd stopped laughing. Something was wrong. The match should have been over by now. The human should have been dead. But she was still moving, still dancing, and was starting to breathe hard. Myra led him across the arena, step by step. She knew where every trap was hidden. She knew exactly where to stand and exactly when to move. A column of flame erupted from the sand, stumbled back, his armor scorched. The crowd gasped. Myra had led him right into it. Again and again, she used the arena against him. Rising pillars slammed into him when he expected open ground. Sand turned to liquid beneath his feet, dragging him down. Flame jets caught his arms, his legs, his back. He was being beaten by the very arena he had dominated for so many years. The crowd was silent now, completely silent. They had never seen anything like this. Was bleeding. His armor was cracked in 3 places. His legendary spear felt heavy in his hands. And the human girl was still standing there, still breathing, still watching him with those dark, patient eyes. "What are you?" he growled. Myra did not answer. She was waiting for something. The moment Hen had described. The instant went to a downward strike. Raised his spear high, his muscles tensed. He was putting everything he had into this one attack. He would split her in 2. He would end this nightmare. He struck, and Myra moved. She did not move away. She moved in, straight toward him, under his guard, inside his reach. Her hands found the shaft of the legendary spear, right at the point where the metal joined the handle. A stress point. A weakness that no one had ever exploited because no one had ever gotten close enough to try. She twisted. The spear shattered. The sound it made was like a scream. 12 generations of champions, and their weapon broke in the hands of a human girl. The pieces fell to the sand like broken bones. Stared at the fragments. He stared at his empty hands. He looked up at Myra, and for the first time in 47 victories, something new appeared in his eyes. Fear. The arena was completely silent. 1,000,000 spectators, and not one of them made a sound. They were looking at Myra like she was something impossible, something that should not exist. She stood there in the center of the arena, a small gray figure against all that gold, and she did not move. She did not run. She held the largest fragment of the broken spear in her hand, and she waited. High above in the royal box, High Arbiter Ox watched with cold fury in her glowing eyes. This was not supposed to happen. This could never be allowed to happen. She reached for the controls that governed the arena. If the human would not die properly, she would die in fire. High Arbiter Ox had ruled the arena of Ascension for 200 years. She had seen thousands of matches, thousands of deaths, thousands of victories and defeats. Nothing surprised her anymore. Nothing scared her anymore. Until now. She watched the human girl standing in the center of the arena, holding the broken remains of legendary spear. She watched the crowd sitting in stunned silence, unsure what they had just witnessed. She watched her own hands trembling, and she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Panic. This could not be allowed. If a human, a weak, soft, pathetic human, could defeat the greatest champion in the arena's history, everything would change. The other conquered species would see it. They would begin to hope. They would begin to question. They had built their empire on the belief that they were superior to all other beings. If that belief cracked, the whole empire might fall. Ox made her decision in the space of a heartbeat. She pressed the emergency controls. Deep beneath the arena floor, ancient machines roared to life. Every flame jet, every trap, every hidden weapon activated at once. The arena was designed to survive almost anything, but not this. This was meant to destroy everything on the sand, to erase the evidence of what had happened and leave nothing but ash. The fire came from everywhere. Great columns of flame erupted from the sand, rising higher than the walls. The heat was so intense that spectators in the front rows screamed and fell back. The artificial sun above seemed to dim, overwhelmed by the light of the inferno below. Fell first. The great champion collapsed to his knees, his armor glowing red-hot, his lungs burning with every breath. He had survived 47 matches, but he could not survive this. No one could survive this. No one was supposed to survive this. Myra felt the heat hit her like a wall. Her skin blistered. Her tunic began to smoke. The air itself seemed to catch fire, and every breath was agony. But she did not run, not yet. Hen had shown her the blueprints. He had pointed to a small mark on the arena floor, near the eastern wall, a maintenance access point. The builders of the arena had put it there thousands of years ago, and no one had ever bothered to seal it properly. It was the one place on the arena floor that the flames could not reach. Myra ran. The fire roared around her. She could feel her hair burning, her skin cracking. The pain was beyond anything she had ever imagined, but she did not stop. She could not stop. If she stopped, she would die. If she died, her father would never see her again. If she died, they would win. She was not going to let them win. Halfway to the access point, she stopped. Was lying in the sand 20 meters away. The flames had not reached him yet, but they were coming. He was too big to move, too hurt, too defeated. In a few seconds, he would burn. Myra looked at him. He was her enemy. He had tried to kill her. He represented everything she hated about this place. The cruelty, the violence, the casual way these beings treated death as entertainment. She could leave him. No one would blame her. No one would even know. But Myra remembered something her father had told her long ago on the Perseverance. He had been fixing a water recycler, the same kind he was fixing when she was taken. She had asked him why he worked so hard to fix things that always broke again. Because that is who we are, he had said. Humans fix things, we help things, even when it is hard, even when it hurts. That is what makes us human. Myra ran toward. He was heavy, so heavy. She was small, and he was 3 times her size, covered in armor that burned her hands when she touched it. But she grabbed him anyway. She pulled him anyway. She dragged him across the sand, through the fire, toward the one place where they might survive. The crowd watched in absolute silence. They watched a human girl, burning and bleeding, drag a champion through an inferno. They watched her fall and get up again. They watched her scream with pain but keep moving. They watched her do something that made no sense, something that went against every instinct of survival. They watched her save her enemy. Myra reached the access point. The flames were everywhere now, surrounding them on all sides. She could see the small metal grate in the ground, the entrance to the maintenance tunnels. Safety. Life. She pulled the grate free and looked down into the cool darkness below. Then she turned and dragged to the edge. "Help me," she gasped. Her voice was destroyed, burned raw by the heated air. "You have to help me. I cannot carry you down." Looked up at her. His red eyes were filled with confusion and pain and something else, something that might have been wonder. "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you helping me? I tried to kill you." "Because," Myra said, "I am human." She pushed him toward the opening. He fell, catching himself on the edge, and then dropped down into the tunnel below. Myra followed him, sliding down into the darkness just as the fire closed over the place where they had been standing. Above them, the arena burned. They lay in the tunnel for a long time, breathing the cool air, feeling their burns scream with pain. Myra could not move. She was not sure she would ever move again. Everything hurt. Everything was broken. But she was alive. Spoke first. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. "No one has ever done what you did," he said. "No one has ever beaten me. No one has ever saved me." He turned his great head to look at her. "You could have let me die. You should have let me die. I do not understand." Myra closed her eyes. She thought about her father. She thought about the Perseverance. She thought about all the people who were waiting to hear that she had died. "You were worth saving," she said simply. They heard voices above them. The fire was dying down, and people were coming to investigate. Ox would be looking for bodies. She would want proof that her problem had been solved. She was not going to find it. Hen appeared at the end of the tunnel, his broken body moving as fast as it could. He had been watching. He had seen everything. His dim eyes were bright now, brighter than Myra had ever seen them. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it. You survived." "We survived," Myra corrected him. She looked at all of us. They helped each other through the tunnels, the human and the three enemies who had become something else. They did not know what was waiting for them above. They did not know what they would do when they discovered the truth. But they knew that something had changed, something important, something that could not be changed back. In the arena above, the fires finally died. And when they did, the galaxy was watching. The broadcast had not stopped. High Arbiter Ox had meant to destroy the evidence. She had meant to burn the human girl and the defeated champion and leave nothing but ashes and a story she could control. But the broadcast drones were automatic, programmed to record everything that happened in the arena. They had captured it all. The impossible fight, the breaking of the legendary spear, the fire, the escape, and the moment when a human girl dragged her enemy to safety. 1 billion beings across 1,000 worlds watched that moment. They watched it again and again because nobody could believe it had happened. They tried to shut down the broadcast, but it was too late. The video had already spread to every corner of the Empire and beyond. It was everywhere. When Myra emerged from the maintenance tunnels, she walked into a different galaxy than the one she had left. The arena was full of guards. Ox had called every soldier on the station, surrounding the maintenance exits with armed warriors. She was going to end this. She was going to kill the human girl in front of everyone and restore order. Myra climbed out of the tunnel and stood in the burned sand. Her skin was red and blistered. Her clothes were destroyed. She could barely stand, but she stood anyway. Behind her climbed out, then Hen. Ox descended from the royal box, surrounded by her personal guards. The crowd was still there, still watching. They had not left. They could not leave. They needed to see how this ended. "You cheated," Ox said. Her voice was broadcast across the arena, across the station, across the Empire. "You used forbidden knowledge of arena systems. You violated the sacred rules of combat." She raised her hand. "Your victory is void. You will be executed." Myra looked at her. She was so tired, so hurt. She wanted to lie down and sleep forever, but she had not come this far to give up now. "I used what I had," she said. Her voice was quiet, damaged by smoke and fire, but the arena's systems carried it everywhere. "Cunning, knowledge, will, is that not what survival is? Is that not what your arena is supposed to test?" Ox's eyes blazed. "You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You are insects who accidentally wandered into the territory of gods." "Then why am I still alive?" The question hung in the air. The crowd shifted. The guards looked uncertain. Before Ox could respond, stepped forward. He was burned and broken. His legendary spear was gone. He had nothing left except his voice, but his voice was enough. "She defeated me by the old ways," he said. The words rolled across the arena like thunder. "Cunning, endurance, will. These are the virtues that the arena was built to honor. My ancestors fought in this sand when they were still young. They would have been proud to face such an enemy." He turned to face the crowd. "I have won 47 matches in this arena. I am the Undying, and I say that this human has earned her victory." His red eyes swept across the silent spectators. "If you kill her now, you kill my honor, and the honor of every warrior who has ever bled on this sand." The silence was complete, 1 million beings holding their breath. Then from the holding cells deep in the station, a sound began to rise. A rhythmic pounding, fists against metal bars. The old who had seen 1,000 tributes die was slamming his hands against his cell door. And he was not alone. The other prisoners were joining him, one by one. The pounding grew louder and louder. In the crowd, a stood up, then another, then a dozen. They were spectators, not warriors, but they knew what they had seen. They knew what honor looked like. The telepathic shadows did something they had never done before. They reached out with their minds, all of them together, and they projected a single thought into the consciousness of every being in the arena. Worthy. The word echoed in a billion minds. Ox felt her empire cracking around her. The guards were lowering their weapons. Some of them were looking at Myra with something that might have been respect. Others were looking at Ox with something that might have been doubt. For 12,000 years, they had ruled because everyone believed they were stronger and smarter and better than all other species. That belief was dying, right here, right now, in front of everyone. Ox had no choice. "The human is declared the victor," she said. The words tasted like poison in her mouth. As per arena law, her is granted 1 year of reduced tribute. It was the standard prize, nothing special, a minor reward for a minor victory. But everyone knew it was so much more. Myra did not celebrate. She did not cheer. She just nodded once and turned to walk away, walked beside her, and Hen followed behind. 3 enemies who had become something new. 3 symbols of something that they could never control. As she left the arena floor, Myra passed the rows of warriors still waiting for their matches. They looked at her with different eyes now. Not pity, not contempt, something else. Hope. She returned to the holding cells, and was there. His ancient face split in a smile she had never seen before. "You did it," he said. "You showed them, you showed everyone." "I just wanted to survive," Myra said. "No," shook his great head. "You did more than survive. You proved that they can be beaten. You proved that we can win." He reached through the bars and touched her shoulder with surprising gentleness. "That is worth more than you know." In the weeks that followed, the video of Myra's victory spread across the galaxy. It reached worlds that had been under rule for thousands of years. It reached species who had forgotten what it felt like to fight back. It reached people who had given up hope long ago. And something began to change. On a mining colony in the outer reaches, workers refused to meet their quota. When the overseers demanded to know why, one of them said simply, "We are worth more than this." On a farming world near the galactic core, a young woman organized her village to resist a new tax. When they asked her where she found the courage, she showed them the video. "If a human girl can walk through fire," she said, "then we can do this." On 100 worlds, in 1,000 ways, the Empire began to tremble. Myra returned to the Perseverance with her father. He had been released as part of her prize, his broken arm still healing. When she walked onto the ship, the people lined the corridors to see her. They did not cheer. They just watched, silent and awed, as the girl who had walked through fire came home. Her father held her for a long time. He did not say anything. There was nothing to say. Later, when they were alone, he asked her what she wanted to do next. Myra thought about it. She thought about the arena, about the fire, about the look in his eyes when she saved his life. She thought about the video spreading across the galaxy, and the hope in his voice, and the word that they had sent into 1 billion minds. "I want to fix things," she said. "I want to help, that is what we do." Her father smiled. It was the same smile he had when he taught her to repair water recyclers, all those years ago. "Then that is what we will do," he said. Outside the ship's windows, the stars waited. The Empire still stood, vast and powerful and cruel, but it was not as strong as it had been. Cracks were appearing. Questions were being asked. Change was coming, slow and certain, like water wearing away at stone. It had started with a small human girl, a broken spear, and a walk through fire. And it was only the beginning.